What's up everyone, Adam from Cape Crawlers, and this is the Axial SCX24 budget build. Pop quiz, you've just bought a brand new Axial SCX24 and you've got $100 to spend on mods. What do? That's the challenge of today's video, my friends. We're going to see how much performance we can eke out of this little Gladiator for $100. We're going to give ourselves a total budget of $250, and we're going to see just what we can do to this SCX24. You know, my day job and my profession outside of YouTube and everything is finance and operations, so I can make pennies bleed. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to try to maximize our dollars here to get as much performance out of this little rig as we can. So how we're going to do this, we're going to go online, we're going to go shopping. I'm going to show you my shopping list. I'm going to order these things and then we're going to install them on the rig. So this is going to be a fun video. I've already kind of done some homework here. I've sourced out a lot of the parts. I've even got it to where I've tried to bundle as much as I can with single companies to save on shipping, get free shipping if we can. Amazon's going to be a friend in this one for sure, but we're just trying to keep all of the ancillary costs down and focus on the big value add items. So why don't we take a look at our SCX24, see what we're working with, and then we'll jump into this. You may be wondering why I picked a new Gladiator to do this. And the reason is that, one, I just love the Gladiator. Two, primarily, is that I'm coming up on the 1-year anniversary of buying my first SCX24, which was my blue Gladiator. So I thought it would be fun to do this project with the new Gladiator. There it is. Oh my gosh, it's so little. Look at it. So I want to look at this rig and just kind of show you my game plan here. We'll kind of visualize what we're going to do, strategize together here. So the goal is to get as much performance out of that and get as close to this as we can with $100. Now this is my flagship build. This was the first SCX24 I got, started as this right here. And now we have this just complete insane creation that I've got here. It's my blue baby. I love this thing so much. But I've got about $1,000 into it as it sits right now, including the rig. That's a pretty outrageous build. I mean, we've just thrown everything in the kitchen sink at this thing. But with this little guy here, I want to see what we can get for $100 in upgrades. So my focus areas with this thing, we want to shift the weight forward. We want to bring the weight down. We want to widen the track for stability. We want to improve our crawling, our low-speed crawling ability, both in terms of smoothness and in overall power and torque. We want to upgrade our steering so that we can, one, we can capitalize on full steer reliably, and we want to be able to turn that extra mass that we're going to be putting in the front here. We're going to be looking at the chassis layout here. We're going to be, again, doing some mods to shift the weight around. I'm going to show you a couple different ways to do that, some of my favorite ways. And we're going to adjust the suspension a little bit, more for function and some for fun too. So that's the game plan, and we're going to kind of try to attack those specific areas to see if we can get out of this thing for performance. So why don't we put this on the course and get some baseline runs with the brand new Gladiator to see what our starting point is. Here we go, brand new Gladiator. Oh my gosh, the amount of nostalgia I'm feeling for this thing right now is just outrageous. We'll tool around a little bit and then we'll do some of the challenge lines that we usually do to get some baseline performance ratings. But first, oh my gosh, there we go. There's that top heaviness, there's that bounciness from the shocks. I don't even know if we're going to make it up the canyon here. Just that long wheelbase with the Gladiator. You know, you do run the risk of getting high centered like that, and also your approach and departure angles. All right. I do miss the scale look of the Gladiator though. It just looks so good driving around. Boy, you do forget how incapable they are in stock form though. It's like an infant going around the course here. I can't even get up onto my upper level here. Alright, give it some help here. We'll start at the top. Get into some challenge lines here. Maybe. Whoa, man. Might be rougher than I thought. We've got our work cut out for us. So we needed help even getting to the gatekeeper. The gatekeeper to the gatekeeper we needed help with, so I'm not too confident in the escalator here. Put it up on the next level here, and we're still just that hop. Oh, no. Let's try the chute while we're over here. So one thing the Gladiator does do well is vertical climbing, just because of the long wheelbase. So if anything on Mini Moab, I think we can do this. Yes, we can. Let's just get a baseline, see how far we can get up Hell's Gate. Oh, Jeep wave. I think that's it right there. So we certainly have our work cut out for us with this thing. All right, let's go take a look at our shopping list for mods, and then we'll take the next step here. So you can see we are in desperate need of modifications. Now I remember why we throw mods at these things so quickly. As fantastic as they look out of the box, I love the scale look, love the details, I love this thing out of the box. I do. But it just needs some work. It is pretty sad on the indoor course. We couldn't really do much of anything except cruise around on the flats. We did get up the chute though. I got to give it credit there. That long wheelbase really helped us there. But it needs some help all around. So let's take a look at our shopping list and see what we got here. So I got my list. I got everything pulled up here. I'll throw some screenshots up so you guys can shop with me. And let's go through the list of what I'm thinking here. So of course the biggest chunk of the budget is going to be the truck itself. So buying the Gladiator itself. Retails for $150. I got this on A-Main Hobbies. And there's a coupon code you can use, which I'll put in the description down below, that can save you some money when you get over $100. So we saved $10 on the rig itself there. While I was at A-Main Hobbies, I got a new servo, and I got some micro foams to go in our tires that we're going to look at next. So, and also because we bought over $100 worth of stuff, it was free shipping at A-Main Hobbies. So those were the 3 upgrades from A-Main. Next, we're going to jump over to Mofo RC. We're going to pick out our new motor. So I'm looking at the Torque Beast 30 for the Gladiator here because it's an easy install, bolts right up to the stock motor plate, super simple, super inexpensive, good power, good smoothness, great little motor for this thing. I think this is going to be a great first motor for this. Next, we're going to jump over to Amazon. So Amazon here, this is where we're going to get some good deals here. So I got some Endura tires and wheels. So for the wheels, we're going to do the deep dish stamped steel beadlocks, my favorite combo. This is going to give us a steel beadlock wheel that we're also going to be able to flip and give us about 4 millimeters of extra width. So this is going to help us with stability with that extra track width. And it's also going to open up a whole lot of doors for tires that we're going to get. For the tires, we're going to try out the new Endura 58 millimeter rock terrains. So Endura has just been killing it with the tire game lately. So these are awesome tires, great sticky compound, good size, good scale look, should fit nicely on the build for $13. So rims were 22, tires were $13.99. So $14 for the tires. While we're on Amazon, we're going to look for some brass. So we're going to do some brass steering knuckles, some diff covers. We want to get that weight down low and bias it up front. That's really what we're focusing on. Now I found a kit here on Amazon for $21 that gives us the brass knuckles and the brass diff covers. It also gives us some hex extensions, but I probably won't end up using those. So that's going to do it for our Amazon order. Next, we're going to hop over to Etsy. Now here at Etsy, we're going to grab some custom stuff. We're going to go to Grizzly Works RC. We're going to grab a low center of gravity chassis kit. Now there are ways to do the LCG swap with the stock kit, but I just really like the Grizzly Works because it helps bring the battery down in the front to help with that low center of gravity. And it's $11. I think it's money well spent. So we're going to grab the LCG chassis kit, and while we're at Grizzly Works, we're going to grab the flex extensions too. So this is just going to give us a little more fun factor, give us a little more flex and articulation with the stock suspension, and we're going to combine the shipping with the LCG chassis kit. So that should be our shopping list. By my math, that gets us to $246, $4 below our budget to cover some ancillary shipping and taxes and things like that. Now, I didn't factor in taxes, sales tax, looking at this thing. I'm not going to get into that level of detail. But principal costs, we got to $246. So now we wait impatiently until our upgrades show up, and then we'll get into the install. All right, my friends, we got our goodies. Let's check out, see what we got. So, tires and wheels. We got our 58 millimeter tires. I just want to see how these look compared to the stock tires on here. Oh man, these are great. These might be big. Those are, ooh. It's going to be interesting to see what we got for clearance on these things. Nice tires though, super soft and sticky. I like these a lot. We're going to mount these on the Endura deep dish wheels, the stamped steels. Like I said, I love these wheels. I got the gunmetal gray, so, I love that gray. It looks really good. One thing I did too, I drilled out the ring. We're going to vent these wheels, and we're again trying to eke out as much performance as we can. We want to capitalize on these nice, soft, swishy tires by letting them breathe and letting them conform to obstacles. So rather than putting holes in the tires, lately I've been venting my wheels. So that's what we're going to do with these, so we can get that maximum squish factor, get that good traction out of this thing. I got a set of Crawler Innovations Little Nova micro foams. These are ultra soft foams. I love these foams. But honestly, now that I have my hands on these Endura ones, this foam that comes with the Endura tires, this is nice and soft. Certainly not as soft as the little Novas. I mean, these are so soft. So I'll probably still end up using these because the Gladiator is really light in stock form. We got our Grizzly Works chassis kit. It's the 2 pieces. So we've got our battery tray up front, ESC tray in the back, flex extensions from Grizzly Works as well. We got our Eco Power servo. This is the Metal Gear digital servo, 12 gram. Strong little servo, great servo for the money here. So this is one of my go-to servos for sure. So this is what we're going to do for upgrade steering. We got our Torque Beast 30 size motor. It's going to be good. This is the new Torque Beast 30 that came out just very recently. And we got our brass components here. Now, full disclosure, I am using some of my takeoff parts for this rather than ordering a whole new kit for diff covers and brass knuckles. I'm using stuff that I have around, but it's the same weight and the same components. I'm just using some of the stuff that I have. So those are our upgrades. That's what we're going to do. We're also going to do some mods to this thing. As we're installing these new upgrades, we're going to do some modifications to the build as we go along to tighten it up, to improve it, and just, again, maximize the bang for the buck out of this thing. So let's get to installing these, and then we're going to see what type of transformation this thing makes. Alright guys, I got the Gladiator pretty much gutted here, but I figured I'd pause for a minute before I put the Grizzly Works chassis in just to show you how to do this without the chassis kit if you didn't want to purchase it. So in stock form, we've got the battery tray back here, ESC tray up front. It would be sitting like this, battery right there. What you can do is just pull your ESC off, put your battery in the front. You can just lay it on this tray. You can use the strap to go around it, or you can get Velcro, and you put the battery right there so it gets you good weight up front. And then you can take the ESC and you can put it on the battery tray itself if you want, or you can get rid of your battery tray altogether and you can just kind of wedge your ESC down in between your frame rails. Now this is what I've done in other videos. If you watch my first 5 mods video, this is one of the bonus mods that I put in that video. I show that in detail. But this is one way to do this LCG chassis kit mod yourself. Now, what I'm going to do is use the kit from Grizzly Works itself, because it does plant the battery a little lower down here in the chassis. Now we're getting to that point now because I've already swapped the motor out. I've got the new Torque Beast 30 in here. Now we're getting ready to install the LCG kit. So I'll show you what this looks like real quick. So again, here's our front component here. So see it's at an angle here. It slides down the frame rails, and it's going to put your battery at that angle in the slope of the chassis here. So it kind of pops in just like this. You can see that's what the front piece looks like right there. Now the advantages of this, one is that it puts your battery down at an angle here, drops it down a little further, but you also get a multitude of shock positioning here in the front, where you'd just be limited to the single tower from the stock setup. This gives you a whole bunch of different options that we can manipulate our shock settings and tune our performance. So it's another added bonus there. I think it's well worth the $11 for this kit. The rear has your ESC tray in the back here. You can just put that on, and again, it eliminates your rear shock towers and just gives you a whole bunch of different options in the back as well. So again, a couple of reasons why I really like this kit. I think there's huge bang for the buck here. Here's our finished product here. The ESC right in the middle, battery nice and low up in the front. Everything looks good. All right, my friends, we're making good progress now. We're coming down to the wire here. Time for some quick instructional tutorials and some hacks here. We're going to work on the servo. So I've taken the stock servo out right here. So I opted to replace the servo with this Eco Power digital servo. Just because it is stronger, it is going to be more reliable, and it's going to be more powerful. But if you didn't have the budget to replace your servo, a quick tip to get more strength out of your stock servo is that you can take a 1.5 millimeter hex driver and you can tighten the screw right here in the front. And tighten that in will give you a little more strength out of this stock servo. but I always recommend replacing these because they just tend to fail really quickly, especially when you start adding weight and width on your track. So we opted to replace it, but if not, that's a good tip to get you a little more life out of your stock servos. With the Eco Power and with pretty much any upgraded servo that you're going to get, you're going to have to modify your stock servo tray. So let's take this off here. So you'll see what I mean here. When you take this bigger servo, this wire comes off to the side and doesn't fit in this tray. So what we're going to have to do is just snip that little corner piece off. So that's what we're going to do here. Just like that. Now we fit in there nice and snug. Okay, so what I've done here, I've trimmed our tray as much as I can. I've got the servo in there to get it flush with the mount in a way that doesn't collide with the bumper mounts and the things up front. I had to kind of put this up and over the Y-link here in the back, which is not ideal because now our servo is kind of at an angle. So we're going to see how this performs. We might have to pull this out and put the stock one back in, depending on how this performs. This is tricky. It's tricky with the stock tray and the larger servo because pretty much no matter where you put it, you're going to have fitment issues. So if I'd laid it flat on the tray, it stuck out so far that it hit the bumper and the mounts, and we'd have to do some serious modification to get this thing in there. So if you're not afraid of that, you can easily lay this down flat, but you'll have clearance issues here. You'll have to trim the ears of the servo off, and you'll have to remove or modify your front bumper and the mounts to clear the big servo. So it's in here now. We've got good clearance, so we're going to give it a shot. If we have issues, we'll swap it out, like I said. But this is a challenging one, but it's in there. We're just going to wire everything up. One of the things I do like about the Eco Power too is that it comes with an extension cable, because you will need to run extension wires to get to your ESC now that it's in the back. So your stock servo just has this tiny little wire, as does your headlights. So we have these extension cables, which I'll put in the description below. I think they were $3 or $4 on Amazon. So if you did have to buy these, we'd still be within budget. But this is something you will need to run your electronics back there, or you could just not run your headlights and you could utilize the extension cable that comes with the Eco Power. But if you kept the stock servo, you would need an extension cable to reach our ESC in the back. Quick note on the flex extensions. So I put the flex extensions on here too, if you can see that. They're these little levers in the front. You see you bolt the flex extensions onto the shock mount, and then the shock attaches to the flex extension. And what that does is it just allows the shock to drop a little bit more, lets the axle drop a little bit more rather, because that extension rotates up. The back here, I actually had to pause there for a minute and realize that I put this on incorrectly. So in the back with the flex extensions, these are twofold. One is that they have that same kind of hinge mechanism where that flex extension just allows more axle drop because of the rotation of the extension. But when it's sitting at level ground, it also lowers your ride height because it allows the shocks to sit behind the axle. So when it's sitting, it actually drops the shocks down behind where they would normally be bolted up. So it gives you extra articulation, but also helps lower your ride height. Same thing with the front. So optimistically, this will give us a lowered stance, but still give us lots of axle drop and articulation. So that's the plan. Last tip here, before we start to assemble everything, is the steering linkage. Now normally I would suggest upgrading our steering linkage, but there is a trick to make this work a little better. See, it's very floppy how it is now. But when we put this together, we're just going to put some O-rings on each one of these mounting positions. And that should help us shore it up. I'm going to put one in there too. We don't put one where it attaches to the horn here, but in these 3 points we're going to put an O-ring. Now if you don't have an O-ring, I would suggest getting one of these tool kits. This one's from Little Guy Racing Parts. It's a complete tool kit. And the reason is that it comes with these little O-rings that we need. Now, as you get building more and more and you get into linkage and suspension components, you'll get a ton of these O-rings lying around. But in the interim, if this is your first rig, I'd suggest picking up one of these tool kits. Not only will you get the tools that you need, but you'll also get the hardware, spare hardware, and these O-rings and things that can help out. So we're just going to take 3 of these and we're going to tighten up our linkage when we put it back together. Guys, I'll let you down here. Just broke the bolt of the steering linkage off inside our brass knuckle. This is kind of worst case scenario because now I have to somehow drill that bolt out. There's not enough on there to get it out. And what I found is that the linkage just does not thread into our aftermarket knuckles. I just try to do this, kind of freely, and it just is not cooperating. So at the risk of breaking another one, I'm either going to have to go back to stock knuckles or I'm going to have to pony up and get an aftermarket linkage. I'm going to have to get a new linkage anyway because this bolt is broken off here. So I've got to kind of brainstorm how to address this. So I'm going to pause for a minute and see if I can get it fixed. All right, guys, what ended up doing? So I went to the local hobby shop, found this billet aluminum steering linkage from Hot Racing for $10. So we've returned the EcoPower Servo in order to stay in budget. So now we've got upgraded steering linkage. We're going to run this stock servo, see how it does. But this keeps us back in line with budget. I drilled out this knuckle. So what I'm going to have to do is I've got a tiny nut as well of our hardware kit that I'm going to have to put on the back side of this for our linkage to keep it bolted up. But we saved the knuckle, got our new steering linkage. We're going to get back in action here. So let's take a look at our Gladiator. Look at this thing. I am in love with how this thing turned out. The tires, I was a little skeptical about the tires. I thought they were going to be too big, but I think they fit really, really well on here. The added width from those flipped wheels gives us just enough track width. Again, not outrageous, but this should really help with our stability. I'm really hoping that the steering holds up strong. We did tighten up the servo saver. We did tighten up that screw in the servo, so we'll see what we can get out of this thing for performance from a steering perspective. The flex extensions, I think, give it a really nice stance. I was able to mount the shocks pretty low on these chassis points here, so we should get some good articulation and some good axle drop, but because of where the flex extensions sit the shocks, it's got a really nice stance to it. It's not monster truck high or anything like that. It's got a really good, really kind of scale look to it. Took that camper shell off the back, retained the cage. I'm hoping that this added weight up top doesn't hurt us too bad. I think, this camper shell is pretty heavy and right on top of the rig. Taking this off makes a big difference. Let's get this thing fired up and get on the course and see how it does. Okay, here's our upgraded Gladiator. It looks so good. Let's check it out. Torque beast motor, so much smoother. Oh, look at that. Tires look like they clear okay. I think I got a little bit of rub in there, not terrible. I love the stance though. Really wishing we were able to swap the servo, but this is okay for now. right, let's get into it. Let's try some challenges. Remember before we couldn't even get over this entry gatekeeper here. Oh man, look at this thing. Easy. Right, there's one obstacle down on Mini Moab. Let's try some more. Let's try the chute before we go up Hell's Gate. Oh, very well composed up there. Moment of truth here. I'm rooting for this thing. I'm getting nervous. I want it to do so good. All right, remember we could not get even close to this point before. It's gonna do it. Oh my gosh. So I gotta try that one more time. Look at this thing. Wow, I am so impressed. This thing is working so good. Why don't we have a little friendly competition here? We got the big monster, the big brother Gladiator here. Let's see what the super modified Gladiator looks like on these lines compared to our budget build. I can tell you I'm getting major chassis twist here. It's byproduct of the shocks and linkage setup on this thing. The added width also pushes it off the track, but we held it together. Got the chute. Hell's Gate. Whoa, getting that big unload up there at the top. You'll settle it back down and get up there. One of the biggest advantages this thing has is the brushless motor and the power and control that you have of this thing. If you can't creep it, you can just blast up an obstacle like that. Then obviously my chassis and suspension setup, you get this crazy lift right there. But the slow control, you can really ease it up and over. So obviously two very different machines here, but I am pretty impressed with our new build, how it stacked up against the matriarch here. That was fun. So the budget Gladiator, let's talk about how this thing did. I am so impressed with how well this thing did on the course. What a night and day transformation this thing made. And we stayed within budget. We had to do some pivots there. We broke some stuff. We had to make some quick decisions, but we stayed within budget, got it done, and this thing really performed well on the course. I'm so excited to hear your guys' thoughts on this thing. So this was a super fun project and really eye-opening for me because of how well this thing performed and really just how much I enjoyed watching a more scale-looking Gladiator navigate the course. I love my big blue Gladiator. I adore this thing. It is so extreme and so outrageous. This is more shock value with the crazy flex and the portal axles and just all out going nuts on this thing. This was much more strategic, more performance focused with a little bit of aesthetic, much different approach, and it just worked really well. It just goes to show you that you don't need to throw $400, $500, $800 into a build to have a really well-performing, great-looking rig. That's what makes it fun. You can find that tipping point, that point of diminishing returns, where you're just throwing upgrades on for the sake of upgrading. I think we need to work our way to that tipping point, and I dare say we're close with this now. Made it up all the obstacles on Mini Moab pretty easily. So at this point, I would be cautious about what I start adding for performance upgrades and weight because it just works really good. So you definitely got to find that tipping point where it just becomes nonsensical to start adding upgrades to it, unless you really just enjoy the process like I do. That's really kind of how this thing evolved, was that I just love to tinker and I love to push the envelope. I really wanted to see what this thing could get out for flex. That's what this thing really became known for. So we really pushed the envelope with this thing. But with our new Gladiator, I think we're going to go with a more scale approach, and I'm looking forward to it. So let me know your thoughts down below, what you think of the budget build Gladiator. Super proud of this thing. Also, how did it stack up against our super modified Gladiator? It was pretty close. Which one performed better? Can't wait to hear from you guys. As always, thanks so much for watching. I'll put the parts list down in the description below if you want to check out these upgrades that we did on the new Gladiator. I appreciate your time. Please like and subscribe if you haven't done so, and I'll see you in the next video.